Was there any way that that struggle could have ended without you and your dad killing Jason?
Yeah, there was another way. We could have died.
Was it self-defense or murder with 12 blows of a child's baseball bat? Just days ago, the verdict that few saw coming.
Lots of fathers hate their sons-in-law.
Well, a lot of those fathers don't end up with a dead son-in-law and a bloody baseball bat in their hands.
Now they're telling their versions only to 2020.
He's gonna hit my dad with the bat, and that's it. He's gonna kill my father.
A life and death struggle, but due to a father's love for his daughter or hatred of her husband.
He's got her in a chokehold. And if I don't stop this, I'm gonna die trying.
Instead, it was the other way around.
And this morning, both are charged with murdering her husband.
They're alleging that you and your father hit Jason once he was already on the ground, that you essentially finished him off.
Tonight, a marriage at the breaking point, her fears.
It was suggested that Jason may have killed his first wife.
I knew that.
What?
You know, you think, oh, maybe that's gonna happen to me.
Her secret recordings of a husband's temper. And her fight for the children she was afraid of losing.
You know, I begged, please don't take the kids.
Now we're taking you up the stairs to the moment of truth. Or is it?
I do not believe that I committed a crime. I believe that I did the right thing.
Good evening, I'm David Muir.
And I'm Elizabeth Vargas. Just days ago, a rarity, a former FBI agent convicted of murder. Tom Martins and his daughter Molly both declared guilty in the second-degree murder of her husband, sentenced to 20 to 25 years in prison for what they say was self-defense.
Our Linzie Janis, who's been covering this case for a year and a half now, was right there in the courtroom when the verdict came down. Hearing Molly cry to her mother, "I'm so sorry, Mom. I should have let him kill me." Now only to 2020, they're now telling what they say led to that night of terror.
Hi, Molly.
Hi.
Tonight, in a 2020 exclusive, you'll hear from the only people who really know what happened inside this Winston-Salem bedroom. Or more precisely, the only two still alive to talk about it.
It's horrible. A man died, but a man also attacked my daughter. And a man tried to protect his daughter.
Molly Martins Corbett and her father Tom Martin sat down with us pre-trial to tell us their version of events.
What do you hope to get across today?
The truth.
Molly and Tom make for a rare pair of murder defendants. She'd never broken the law while he'd made a career enforcing it, working for the FBI for 30-plus years. And yet, here they are, enmeshed in an international murder mystery, a whodunit that's made news from the mountains of North Carolina
the closing arguments actually happened, so they would stay
to the Emerald Isle.
Jason Corbett, originally from Limerick, was found dead at his home in Wall.
Tonight's tale begins in Tennessee, where Molly Martins grew up. While Knoxville feels like home today, it's a place Molly once ran from after struggles during college.
Was planning on being a doctor, but really for the first time in my life, school was hard. You know, I hadn't ever really had to study before, so that was a challenge.
There were other challenges: migraines, bouts with depression, and general anxiety about her future. Molly kept it all inside.
I thought maybe I would just go somewhere, you know, and figure myself out for a while.
She signs up with a nanny agency and soon receives an inquiry from a man in desperate need.
Jason Corbett, who sent me messages requesting that I contact him regarding his children. It was emotional. He had lost his wife and there were 2 babies.
At age 24, the once aspiring doctor throws caution to the wind and takes the job offered by the Irish widower.
I arrive in Ireland and it's beautiful.
So Jason's family say that you guys hit it off very quickly, that you guys actually got together and slept together that first night.
That's not true, but it was very quick. I was apprehensive and concerned that it was too quick, but I didn't want to call up my parents and say, I'm uncomfortable with this and I'm coming home. I've failed again.
The unusual relationship toggles between personal and professional. But in short order, Molly finds her place in the world. She is needed, she is wanted, she is accepted as a mother figure.
It was wonderful. For me, it gave me a sense of responsibility, and it filled a void I had that made me feel like I was worth something.
You became a mother overnight.
Yes.
Were you in love with Jason?
I was.
Jason Corbett has many loves. His beer, his favorite soccer team, and most of all, he loves his kids, little Jack and Sarah. After 3 years together, the modern family buys plane tickets to the United States. One-way tickets.
He loved the United States. He thought that the opportunities for the children were significantly better.
In 2011, Irish eyes are smiling and wedding bells are ringing. Tom Martins gets to walk his daughter down the aisle.
On the wedding day, I was excited for them, and it was a delightful experience and a beautiful wedding.
The kids were in the wedding?
They were, of course. They were flower girl and ring bearer.
The happy family soon moves to Davidson County in North Carolina and a home that's tobacco country's answer to Ireland's stone castles. 4 beds, 3 baths, and 5,500 square feet for the kids to run around in. There's even enough space for the in-laws to stay overnight.
It really was a dream summer. Jason was working really hard, but it was a golf course community, and he was very excited about golfing on his day off.
From what I saw, they were a loving couple. I didn't see anything that would question the relationship.
Tony Turner says Jason was the king of the cul-de-sac.
He was very cordial, and he was loved by everyone over here.
Loved by everyone.
The gentle Irish giant. He was good.
Meanwhile, the kids, now 6 and 4, are thriving. Jack Corbett swings a mean bat on the Little League team. Young Sarah is the social butterfly, always impeccably dressed.
They made friends immediately. It was like a wonderland.
Molly's got it all, except one thing. Jason is refusing to make her the children's legal mother.
At that time, I felt like he was actually going to follow through with the adoption papers, and that, I would feel more confident about securing my rights to the children.
It never happened. Instead, Molly says Jason was growing addicted to the narcotic of domination.
He was very controlling and he was very possessive. The first few months, you just kind of brush that off. You think, oh, well, he just loves me so much. But those kind of things got worse.
He was uncomfortable with you socializing?
He was paranoid that I would develop some feelings for someone else, or that somebody would look at me the wrong way.
He was worried you were going to leave him for another man.
He was worried about a lot of things. He'd come home from buying a new golf club for $500, and he'd open the fridge, and there would be a case of raspberries, and that would be it. We can't afford raspberries, and he would throw the raspberries on the floor.
According to Molly, it's a side of Jason no one sees, because to friends, he's the life of the party. The husky 260-pound Irishman always has a smile on his face at neighborhood gatherings. But in private,
He would dictate what she should wear or what she should shop for or when she should be home or when she should or shouldn't leave, or text her repeatedly, or engage in just various forms of, controlling behavior. Demand to see her phone, look at her computer history, that sort of thing.
Molly says the fights were escalating, and she says the kids witnessed them. This is son Jack's recollection when he was later evaluated by a social worker.
And when he would get mad, what would he do? He would physically and verbally hurt my mom. Did you see him physically hurt her? Once or twice. What did you see? Punching, hitting, pushing.
Did the physical abuse become more frequent or more extreme?
Everything became more frequent and more extreme, except for the apologies. They became less frequent and less extreme.
If you're thinking Molly should pack a bag and run, she says she considered it. She visited a lawyer who told her to document any abuse, which she did, making surreptitious audio recordings.
With the family.
Are you finished with your dinner, hon?
I'm talking to you. No. Is this how you treat? This is what you just ignore me? I said, I'd like to have dinner with my family. I'm talking to you. I shouldn't have to say it over and over. I shouldn't have to say, Molly.
Can you guys get out the stuff for pancakes?
See, here you go again. I'm talking to you and you're still going on talking about something else.
Molly is apparently caught between a rock and a hard place. Without a legal adoption, she has no shot of custody in the event of a divorce. She says the stakes are too high to simply walk away.
So you suffered because you didn't want to lose the children.
I never would have left the children. You know, I couldn't imagine. Sometimes I thought maybe I'm being selfish, maybe their life would be better, you know, if they don't have to deal with this. But ultimately, I always came to the same conclusion that, you know, it wouldn't be better for them to lose a second mother.
Tom Martins knows his daughter is suffering, but decides she doesn't need another man bossing her around.
I wasn't going to interfere in Molly's marriage. That was Molly's marriage.
A marriage, she says, that only gets worse when the lights go out.
Sometimes he would be angry and choking me would turn into something sexual, or sometimes the other way around.
So sometimes he would choke you in anger and sometimes he would choke you during sex. Did that scare you?
Everything always felt so real and so scary in the moment when it was happening.
Did you ever pass out?
I did, and it did always make me think of Mags, his first wife, and wonder if that's what happened to her.
Mags Fitzpatrick, who suffered from asthma, died in the middle of the night. The official cause? A heart attack. But Tom Martins remembers a startling conversation he says he once had with the dead woman's father.
His name was Mikey Fitzpatrick, and I thought I was just making polite chit-chat, polite conversation. I said, what do you think of old Jason? And his response was, I think he killed my daughter. And I go, whoa, I'm not really expecting that kind of thing.
From Ireland, the Fitzpatrick family later denied the conversation ever happened. But Molly had heard the same allegation.
At some point it was suggested that Jason may have killed his first wife, that perhaps it wasn't an accident.
Yes, it definitely was. And prior to that, I knew that.
What?
The first time and second time and the third time and the 20th time that you are suffocated or strangled or someone holds their hand over your mouth or a pillow over your face and you can't breathe for an extended period of time, you think, oh, well, his first wife died at 3 o'clock in the morning and maybe that's going to happen to me.
Coming up, something very bad is about to happen.
He's already gone this far, and he's going to kill us.
Details of a deadly night when we return.
"2020 continues. Once again, Linzie Janis.
Davidson County 911. My name is Tom Martins, and we need help.
In the early hours of August 2nd, 2015, Tom Martins, the straight-laced 31-year veteran of the FBI, makes a shocking call to 911. His 39-year-old son-in-law, Jason Corbett, is dead on the bedroom floor, bludgeoned with a baseball bat by Tom. It's a gruesome end to a day that began so differently.
It was a Saturday. The kids both had play dates. Sarah had one earlier in the afternoon, and Jack had a birthday party that evening.
Molly's parents, Tom and Sharon, were never supposed to be with their daughter that day. But when their own plans fall through, they make a fateful decision to drive over and visit for the night.
Were they welcome in your home?
I know they didn't always feel comfortable in my home, but they knew it was beneficial.
The Martins arrive around 8:30 that evening, bearing a special gift for the family little leaguer, grandson Jack.
I had brought over a baseball bat for Jack. He thought it was really cool to get any former baseball gear that was a hand-me-down.
After some pizza for dinner, everyone settles in for the night, with Tom and his wife in a guest room in the basement, Molly and Jason in their room on the first floor, and the kids upstairs. Around 3 a.m., Molly says she's awakened by a sound familiar to any parent.
Sarah woke up. She'd had a nightmare, and she came down, and the kids were not supposed to come in the room, and wake up Jason, so they would just kind of stand outside of the door and whisper until I heard them.
She says she gets 8-year-old Sarah back to bed before tiptoeing down to her room, trying not to wake Jason.
But he woke up and he was angry, and he wanted to know why I'd gotten up, and I told him it was because Sarah had had a nightmare, and then he was just furious because Sarah had been doing this lately, and she just wanted to be coddled, and she was too old for that, and I shouldn't have gotten out of bed.
Molly says knowing her parents were in the house gave her more courage to stand up for herself.
I said, she's just 8, she had a nightmare, I should be allowed to go upstairs and comfort our daughter. All she wanted was her mom to lay with her for a couple minutes, and he forgot my parents were there.
I don't know what precisely woke me up, but what I heard were loud voices and kind of like thumping. Something bad was going on. So I grabbed that Little League baseball bat and I ran upstairs.
He wanted to shut me up, so he covered my mouth, and then he started choking me. But at some point, when he stopped, I screamed. The next thing I remember is my dad standing in the doorway.
What'd you see?
It's awful. He has his hands around her neck, and he quickly moves to move her in front of him between me, and so he's got her in a chokehold.
Fear was, secondary at that point. I was just so ashamed that my father would see me like that, allowing myself to be treated like that.
Did you know that your dad had a bat with him?
I don't know if that registered right away, but it did register.
And I said, let her go. And he said, I'm going to kill her. Then he starts to edge toward the master bathroom, which has a door. And my thought was, if he gets that door between me and him, then she's dead and there's nothing I can do about it. And so I reached around and I hit him in the back of the head with the baseball bat.
And what happened when you hit him?
If he could have gotten angrier, he did.
Tom says the blow to the back of the head didn't stop Jason. He kept dragging Molly towards the bathroom.
He makes it to the bathroom, but I'm too close. He can't close the door. And I'm in the bathroom with him. And I hit him again. I have room now. And I hit him hard in the back of the head again.
You hit him hard?
Yep, I did. He's still got her by the throat, but he changes tactics. He decides to come back at me. And I'm swinging the bat. And he catches the bat in his hand. And he sends me flying across the room.
Jason just grabbed the bat away. It was like it was nothing. He could choke me with one hand and grab the bat with the other, and he was just so much stronger. And I was screaming, don't hurt my dad, don't hurt my dad. And I thought, he's gonna hit my dad with the bat, and that's it. He's gonna kill my father.
I get up and I rush him, and I grab the bat with 2 hands, and I hang on for dear life. I'm trying to hit him with the bat, and hit him with my elbow, and hit him with my fist, or anything else, but I'm gonna hang on to that bat. And he goes down.
He went down?
He went down. And then I realized, okay, he's not going to get up. Okay, looks like the threat is over.
This version of events will eventually be challenged. But what we know is that around 3 a.m., Tom Martins makes this call to 911.
What's going on there? He's in bad shape. We need help. Okay, what do you mean he's in bad shape? He's hurt? He's bleeding all over, and I may have killed him. I hit him in the head. With what? With a baseball bat. With a baseball bat? Yes, ma'am. He was choking my daughter. He said, I'm going to kill her.
The 911 dispatcher instructs Tom to begin CPR on Jason. Tom hands the phone over to his daughter.
Listen to me. I need you to calm down so that we can help him, okay? I'm certified. I just can't think. Okay, you have to stay calm.
And the whole time I'm thinking that he's going to sit up and start choking me again, and it was terrifying.
Did the kids sleep through that struggle and the 911 call?
The kids did. I keep their rooms closed and my door closed because arguing was a common theme.
And your mom was downstairs the whole time?
My mom was in the guest bedroom beneath us. I guess my dad told my mom to stay in the room with the dogs.
EMS and police arrive. They take Molly and her father to separate patrol cars and bring them in for questioning.
I was told, don't worry, it looks like self-defense.
This is going to be self-defense, okay? I don't think there's going to be an issue with
Molly and her father are photographed and told they are free to go. Deputies drive them back to the house about 7 hours after the incident.
The sheriff was there. He came up to me and I said, "How much longer are you guys going to be here?" "We're done."
They were finished processing the scene
Yes,
that quickly.
they were done.
But investigators are just getting started. And to them, what looked like self-defense soon looks a lot more like murder.
They're alleging that you essentially finished him off. Did you murder Jason?
There's more to the story of what happened that night, and it's about to cost Molly her reputation, her freedom, and even worse, the children who have called her mommy for the last 8 years.
You know, I begged, please don't take the kids.
Stay with us. In the aftermath of Jason Corbett's death,
The 39-year-old father of 2 was found dead in his home earlier this month.
there is a bitter divide as wide as the Atlantic. 2 families in 2 countries with 2 very different notions of the man he was. In the medieval city of Limerick, Ireland, hundreds of mourners eulogize a loving husband and father. Jason's casket is adorned with the word Daddy. But stateside, his widow Molly, adamant that he abused her for years, is desperate to secure custody of 10-year-old Jack and 8-year-old Sarah.
You think that they're going to see the truth and that everyone is going to recognize that you are the mother to these children.
This is Jack in an interview with a social worker.
Do you like her? Yes. And you said you wanted to stay with her? Yes.
But Jason's will, written before his marriage to Molly, states that both children are to be placed in the custody of his sister Tracy in the event of his death. And Tracy flies to North Carolina, determined to execute that wish. Molly says she is stunned when, after a guardianship hearing, a woman from social services arrives with an order to take the children Molly has raised for 8 years.
You know, I begged for her to think about our lives and think about what she was doing, and please don't take the kids. So they were crying and, you know, screaming, "Don't take me from my mommy, don't take me from my mommy." And I took them out to the van and I buckled them in and, you know, I told them that I loved them and I'd see them soon, and I drove off and I melted. Melted into the driveway.
The next day, Molly is granted 1 hour of visitation with the children. There are tearful hugs.
I love you so much.
She gives Sarah her necklace as a memento, and she struggles to keep her composure.
They said if I cried or the kids got upset that I would be removed. So I did a good job of holding it together and for them. And we looked at pictures. That's you. That's you. That's baby Sarah. We really went to go see Santa.
She says she was later sent a letter they wrote.
It said that I love you very much, times 999 billion, and we will never leave you. You're the greatest mom we could ever have. And yeah, I never saw them again. They were taken the next day to Ireland.
She posts messages like these on Facebook, including her phone number and email, in the hope they can contact her. And she makes a plea on an Irish radio show.
I want someone to tell them that I love them. And happy birthday, kiddos, with all of my heart.
In return, she receives this voicemail from Jack.
Hi, Mom. This is Jack. I miss you and I love you. Keep fighting really hard. I love you so much.
While Molly's focused on her fight for the children, what she doesn't know is that police are focused on her and her father. They no longer see her as a suffering widow. Now she becomes a suspect.
What happened to make this go from justified self-defense to murder?
The investigation itself.
Davidson County prosecutors say they took a hard look at these photos and noticed a vast difference between Jason's injuries and the absence of injuries, they say, on Molly and her father.
How brutally was Jason beaten?
It was horrific.
Would you have expected to see more injuries on Tom and Molly had they been in the kind of struggle that they described?
They walked away with nary a mark on them, and he left on a board with his skull crushed and his scalp ripped off.
What can I say? The struggle occurred. I've described it as accurately as I can, and that's what happened.
The investigators believe the evidence never lies and that this bloody brick or paving stone found in the bedroom tells a convincing story. The story of a wife in a murderous rage. In her police interview, Molly admits she hit her husband with it.
I hit him on the head with a brick on my right hand.
Why would there be a paving stone in your bedroom?
The kids and I were going to decorate a number of paving stones. Anyway, it was left on my nightstand.
But in our interview, her lawyers advise her not to discuss what she did with it.
Did you take action and hit Jason yourself at that point with the paving stone?
It's just not something that I'm prepared to talk about right now.
Prosecutors are convinced that brick shattered both Jason's skull and Molly's self-defense claim.
When she was crushing his skull with that brick, she had anger to assuage and resentment to address, and she addressed those on his head.
What you are saying is that Tom and Molly beat Jason after he was already down,
Yes.
when he was no longer a threat.
Absolutely. Yes. The physical evidence suggested that he was still being struck in the head after he went down.
Eventually, prosecutors conclude the G-Man and his daughter have cooked their whole story, and they charge Molly and Tom with second-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter.
Molly Martins and her father Thomas had surrendered themselves.
And this morning, both are charged with murdering her husband.
For Jason's family in Ireland, who had bombarded the DA's office with letters demanding justice for Jason, it is welcome news.
We want to express our appreciation to Davidson County and to the investigators for their hard work and determination to uncover the truth.
It's a huge story in Ireland.
It's a 32-year-old woman and her father
have been charged in connection with the death of Irishman Jason Corbett.
And the Irish tabloids immediately have a field day, dubbing Jason a gentle giant and Molly as the merry widow, painting her as a gold digger with mental problems. But Tom Martins, ironically an expert himself in processing crime scenes from his days at the FBI, says the investigation was flawed. He says he was stunned that after their police interviews, he and Molly had no further contact with the sheriff's office.
What I thought would happen next was that they would want follow-up interviews. Pretty logical, you know.
We were ready for them to call us anytime to be questioned again about any memories that may have resurfaced when you're not in a state of shock.
It's not worthy of a second interview, and I'm being charged with second-degree murder.
How do you feel going into trial? Are you feeling confident?
I'm feeling worried, but I feel righteous. I would not want to live with not having taken action.
Are you guilty of murder?
No.
Is your father guilty of murder?
No, my father is, guilty of saving my life.
Stay with us.
We continue with more of 2020.
Now to new developments in that father-daughter murder trial. So many are following.
3 weeks ago, Tom Martins and his daughter Molly walked into a North Carolina courtroom facing charges of second-degree murder. Tom Martins took the stand and told jurors he simply did what any father would do.
You were defending your daughter.
I was. I'm going to do everything that I have to do to save her life.
And did you think that he would kill you?
Yeah. I mean, once it starts, it's what it is. It's a fight. You either fight and lose, or you fight and win.
But prosecutor Alan Martin immediately started chopping at his story like the trunk of a Carolina pine.
There was so much that didn't make sense. The physical activity that he described between he and Jason would flip from him being completely overpowered to seconds later powerfully overpowering that same man.
Prosecutor Greg Brown honed in on the one person notably absent from Tom's account, his wife Sharon. Where was she during that violent struggle?
I asked him a number of questions about the noise that was taking place, when the baseball bat was hitting the walls, when he indicated that he was thrown to the floor, and then no wife came running up the stairs to check on him. No wife called 911. it was just incredulous.
Put yourself in his shoes for a moment. He's a father. He walks in, says he sees his daughter being strangled by his son-in-law. You're telling me you wouldn't try to intervene?
I'm telling you, I don't believe that's what happened.
Prosecutors tell the jury to disregard Tom's testimony and focus instead on the physical evidence that they say proves their overkill theory. Evidence like that brick and the blood spatter in the bedroom.
What does the blood spatter tell us?
Tom Martins was very clear. He said when Jason went down, the threat was over. And in this particular case, the blood spatter information that was testified to showed that Jason was down and still being bludgeoned.
They point to pictures like these, noting that most of the blood spatter is on the lower half of the wall, with the area above relatively clean. Prosecutors say that demonstrates that Jason was still being hit after he was down.
Did that happen?
No, that didn't happen. The last hit, he was still standing up, and hopefully, you know, I'd like to think that there's science to prove that, because the truth is the truth.
The prosecution believes the truth is that Molly and her father killed Jason with malice. To prove that, they turned to a witness from Tom's past.
You had one witness on the stand who used to work with Tom Martins who said, yeah, we had a few conversations, and he said he didn't like his son-in-law.
He actually said, that son-in-law, I hate him.
But lots of fathers hate their sons-in-law. How do you get murder from that?
Well, a lot of those fathers don't end up with a dead son-in-law and a bloody baseball bat in their hands.
Did you murder your son-in-law?
No, I didn't murder my son-in-law, and I would challenge any reasonable man, much less a reasonable father, to say that this was unnecessary force. I used the force that was necessary to end the threat.
But at trial, prosecutors challenged the notion that there ever was a threat that night, going so far as to float a possible motive for murder, that Jason may have been considering returning to Ireland and taking the two most precious people in Molly's life with him.
Molly's life was about those children, and she wanted those kids.
She was willing to kill for it?
Apparently, maybe so.
We will follow.
And defense attorney Walter Holton says Molly's story of being attacked could easily have been corroborated if investigators had done a better job.
Everything that pointed to Molly being the victim of strangulation, which she was, they ignored. They didn't check Jason's hand, and lo and behold, there it is.
This crime scene photo shows a blonde hair that investigators never tested. Holton says Molly was a victim of abuse that night and for years before it, and two people in the house knew it, Jack and Sarah.
Mr. Corbett's family took the children to Ireland. They could have brought them back and let them testify. That was not going to happen in a million years, and the judge knew that.
But that might not have helped Molly. According to the prosecutors, before trial, they spoke to Jack, and this time he denied Jason had ever abused her.
Wasn't there anybody else that could testify?
The only way we could do that was to force Molly to testify. Molly has a constitutional right not to take the stand.
Why not put Molly on the stand?
Why? What burden of proof do we have? It's not up to us to prove innocence.
And something else jurors never heard.
I shouldn't have to say, Molly.
Can you guys get out the stuff for pancakes?
See, here you go again. I'm talking to you.
Those audio recordings, Molly says, demonstrate Jason's abuse. In their closing argument, prosecutors made it clear that for them, this case was about more than proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It was personal.
I am very passionate about this case. I very much believe that those two people killed a man, made orphans of two children who did not have to lose their father. That argument was for Jack and for Sarah.
Coming up, the verdict that shook the courtroom, and the jurors are speaking out.
There was no doubt in my mind.
Stay with us. After less than 4 hours of deliberation, the jury in the Martins case returns a resounding verdict: guilty of second-degree murder. The judge sentences both father and daughter to 20 to 25 years in prison. They are led from the courthouse in shackles.
And this morning, a father and daughter in North Carolina are headed to prison.
What an emotional day this has been.
The shockwave from the guilty verdict is still reverberating on 2 continents.
The wife and father-in-law of Limerick man Jason Corbett have been found guilty of second-degree murder.
The verdict today was a relief.
Jason's family feels his reputation has been redeemed.
This was a good man. Jason was a loving man, and he was a great father. My niece and nephew were made orphans in a brutal, merciless killing.
The prosecution is satisfied.
There was justice for Jason today.
While the defense is not only beaten, but bewildered.
This was the worst possible outcome for your clients. What happened?
I mean, the jury ruled against us. I've been involved with many cases where, in the criminal justice system, where the initial ruling didn't go my client's way, and that's why we continue to go on and fight.
But we think they got it wrong, and we think they missed quite a bit.
Just how did the jurors decide to convict? 3 of them kindly sat down with us to explain.
Based off the evidence that was presented, there was no doubt in my mind that I made the right choice.
That evidence, specifically the blood spatter testimony and the crime scene photos, sold them on the prosecution's overkill theory.
Once you hit a certain point and you do not stop, it's no longer self-defense.
Those images of Jason Corbett's skull were so graphic. Nancy, you actually threw up.
Yes, ma'am. I don't think there's anything or any experience in life that could prepare you to look at those pictures.
But the lack of injuries on Molly and Tom led them even further into a theory the prosecution never even presented.
I have a theory for myself. I believe Molly made the first blow.
Why?
I believe Jason was in bed sleeping, and she struck him with the paver.
And her dad helped her cover it up?
I think at some point, Dad came to help out and help cover up. There was blood on the pillow and on the comforter. That may have been the first blow. And then it progressed from that point where he got out of bed and tried to protect himself. I believe that's when Tom had to intervene because of the size difference of Molly and Jason.
To me, the choking did not occur.
As for motive, they say perhaps money, perhaps the kids, perhaps just years of pent-up rage. But in any case, after the deed was done, they believe Molly and Tom took some time to conspire before they called 911.
And what was happening during that passage of time?
Setting up the scenario. What do we tell so we're on the same page and get our story straight? Tom saying maybe because I'm FBI, they'll help look the other way to a degree.
I believe not once in his mind did he think, oh, Davidson County, Podunk Town would even question his 40 years of FBI experience. I feel like he thought he could outwit Davidson County, and Davidson County outwit the Martins.
Molly tells us that Jason is a habitual abuser. Emotional and physical abuse, she says she has suffered for years.
Where's the evidence? The defense did not once suggest any of that.
But that's not our fault. It's the lawyer's fault. You know, I mean, your defense should have defended you. We have to go by what we heard.
The jury has rendered judgment. But what about the Corbett kids? What do they think of Molly now? That's next. Before the judge sentenced Molly and Tom Martins, the prosecution read an impact statement from young Jack Corbett, which said, in part, Molly Martins is so many bad things. One thing she is not is part of my family. Molly Martins will not be forgotten. She will be remembered as a murderer.
Do you believe that he wrote every word of that letter?
This was a handwritten letter, complete with the scratch-outs and the misspellings for a 12-year-old. I believe from the bottom of my heart he wrote every word after careful thought.
When we interviewed Molly in May, she was a free woman, able to enjoy simple pleasures like a jog through the woods. Tonight, she is behind bars, but she told us it makes little difference. As far as she's concerned, her life is already over.
Do you have any dreams? Do you want to rebuild your life one day? You can't ever get your life back when something like that happens. My life ended that day that they took the kids.
And if anyone can relate to the pains of parenting, it's her own father.
We all try to do the right thing, and I tried to do the right thing. And I'd rather live with what I did than live with what I didn't. Better to die in jail than to have my daughter die before my eyes.
Tonight, Molly Martins and her father are in separate prisons. Their defense team has already filed to appeal the verdict.
So the question for you at home tonight, which version of the story do you believe? Let us know on Facebook and Twitter. That's our program for tonight. I'm David Muir.
And I'm Elizabeth Vargas. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, thanks so much for watching and have a great weekend.